Welcome to a brand new installment of Trace Your Future, and today we have a very, very revered guest in studio. Welcome to Trace Your Future, Bafana.
Thank you for having me, Refiloe.
Do people now colloquially call you Izinkabi or Inkabi, or like what do they call you on the streets?
First I would like to greet your guests who are actually watching. So, what people call me in the streets, it's all those names that you've mentioned. About, like,
Which one do you prefer?
My name, Bafana.
Oh, Bafana. Okay. Bafana, you are doing amazing work on the socials, making us love ourselves, love our heritage, love how we look every day, and look forward to getting dressed up on a daily. But I wanted to actually find out about a young Bafana, a 10-year-old. What did his childhood look like? What did he dream of being or having?
The 10-year-old Bafana was a very joyful person. There's much that has changed compared to the person I am right now, based on my exposure to content and my exposure to how life is out there. But the 10-year-old me was just someone who was raised by a single mom, and my knowledge at the time was very limited to what I was exposed to. But what I remember, quite frankly, is that I was a very fun kid.
Because the fun element comes in, because all you're doing is something we are doing every day, getting dressed, but like somebody actually wants to be in the room when you are doing it, because you've got this finesse and this swag. Where does that side come from?
I think it comes from people I've been exposed to in life that I've found very interesting, and it's just being authentic as a person, and not trying to duplicate what someone else is doing, because I'm not going to lie and sit as if I came up with whatever that I'm doing on social media or whatever message I'm conveying out there. It's influence that I've gotten from people and how I actually consumed it. In terms of a person, it actually influences me on how I pull it out for me after actually taking some time to see how I can actually make it relevant to me and make it original to me. But it's always influences I get from people.
And I think if I look at your story, I'm sure you were just thinking, I'm just getting dressed, I'm having a good time. And fast forward to now, where brands like GQ recognize you as somebody who's a man to watch with classic style, and you've had an award, for a Prism Award. You've been a recipient. What does all that recognition for just being you mean in your life?
I think for me, all the accolades I've received, whether it be from my personal activities I do on social media, or whether it be from my 9-to-5 job at DNA Brand Architect, all the accolades to me mean that the work that I'm putting out is being recognized, and it's purposeful work that has been put out, because I think no one would actually grant you an accolade if they don't actually feel that what you're giving them is very purposeful and very educational. So the recognition is just a pat in the back to say you need to continue doing the work that you're doing, so that you actually convey the message that you want people to know about.
I love that. And when you reflect on the work that you've done, over 1 million followers or likes on TikTok.
I would like
when so they're coming, we are bringing them. So when you look at or you define the purpose, what is yours when you look at the content that you create, which is related to fashion, but more than that, authenticity, because you are showing us Inka in the real sense, and that very loved we've all getting here, I'm sure we've passed a few the person that you would see who would drive a taxi, or or going about their business and doing an everyday job, but you've now made us adore them even more, or understand at least the psyche around how the pride they have in what they're looking like.
I think it goes with any subculture that we are exposed to as individuals. And to answer your question, I would like to divert a bit in terms of the reason why I actually started the content. Number one is because I wasn't seeing it out there. Number one, I wasn't seeing anyone getting ready with me using South African subcultures. The idea around the content started because I wanted to actually pay homage to all the South African subcultures that I grew up being exposed to. Ikotana, Mapanzula, Amabinga. there's quite a few that you can mention as an individual when you grew up in a township. That because the beautiful thing about growing up in a township is because there's really much diversity, and you get exposed to a very broad spectrum of fashion and of culture. And I think for me, I've looked at that as a blessing, because I think for people who grew up in certain areas, their knowledge and their what they know about the world is quite limited to their upbringing. And for me, growing up in the townships, when I started seeing the Get Ready With Me videos not being trending online, I was like, oh, this is now a cool time to actually showcase how the styles I grew up liking and enjoying and living to dress like that at a particular age. I'm not seeing them anymore. Then that's where it started to actually do a story. Funny enough, when the first video went out, I always wanted to portray Amabinga and the taxi drivers, because I think for me, my story with the taxi drivers has always been the connection of I've made with one taxi driver growing up who was always a dapper guy with a white crisp shirt, very ironed, with a very beautiful brand hood. It was always black, and I really admired that person, and I admired that fashion sense. And that's where it all started to say I would want to pay homage to one subculture that I resonate with, and that is part of who I am as an individual. And when it went viral, I was like, this is the right time to actually speak about who we are as individuals. And after that, it was just the history of what Australia is right now.
No, it's a movement, because it's thoroughly entertaining to watch. So now it brings me to, you spoke about being influenced yourself. It brings me to the question whether you see yourself as an influencer, and the reason why not.
I think I can I can bounce between influencer and content creator, because
the two are different.
I think I can bounce between that, because I think in most cases we can define who we are, but people would actually make that decision at the end of the day. If I call myself an influencer, do I have any track record of how many people I've influenced to actually do what I'm doing? I do have people who came forward to say, hey, I didn't understand why I'm not being able to dress like that, but you've kind of made it cool, and I would like to get my boyfriend a brand with, or I would like to get my brand with myself. And I think it goes to a certain portion that you influence, because there are other people who actually were influenced by different people, and how they were influenced is through the content that they've consumed. There are guys who were influenced in the same category of the subculture, who were influenced by Big Zulu to dress up a brand with, and maybe my reach went as far as where not Big Zulu is playing, and I have that small market I'm able to actually influence. Then the content creation part also comes into play in terms of how I'm going to produce the content that I will produce, in terms of partnering up with brands and telling stories that I feel are authentic and not really far off from the person that I have, or the persona that I have created online, which in most cases I strive so hard to actually want to push brand in that space of being original and being real. And with the partnerships I have with them, it's that battle of me actually saying, hey, I will create this content for you, but how I will create it, it would not be in terms of how you want it, but it would be in terms of how I feel my audience will relate to it. Then the influencing part will come in to say, did you really get people to buy the product that you were speaking about? And I think it sometimes I would say influencer, sometimes I would say content creator, but I jump between both content creator and influencer.
Yeah, I love the introduction of brands, and I think the authenticity is palpable when one looks at, if like a few years back, you would have seen memes, right, and people making fun of people wearing brandhood, and here comes you and giving us this how can I say, this refreshed way of saying, they are also a classic, part of our heritage, if you think about how long they've been around. And I love that the influence that you're talking about, this taxi driver, because with modern pop culture, one now suddenly thinks that's no longer cool, but it's, as a people, it's contributed to where we are today. And just as an occupation, taxi drivers, like, they do a whole lot more for this economy than can be spoken about. But for me, it's also about a brand like this, what does it mean to you? Because you've got an aesthetic and it's a classic one, but when you look at the local fashion landscape and what brands are doing, how important is it that maybe they plug into, you know, the platforms of content creation and social media and relatability, and no longer it no longer becomes this aspirational thing. Oh, one day if I can wear this, you know, because if I look at you and you are wearing it, it means it's a regular thing to do.
Yeah, I think in how brands can actually come into play in support of what influencers are doing and how they could be relevant into the market. It's just being specific on their partnerships, you know, in terms of who they partner up with. Because I think in most cases, as much as we speak about the aspirational outfits, and I stand to be corrected. Maybe what I understand from you, you're talking about people who wear expensive brands, you know, and I think price comes into who you are as a person, because I cannot sit and say Brentwood is not quite expensive. It is expensive, you know, and it's quality. And I think it goes in terms of when you partner up with the right person as a brand, you are able to communicate with the audience and just being authentic. And that's all I feel brands should do, because at the end of the day, style will evolve, and the style is influenced by all certain elements that a fashion designer or whoever is going to be putting together that garment is exposed to, you know, and those influence may not necessarily come from fashion, but they may be taken from art, they may be taken from music. If you look at the likes of Tibu Makuku, I think he did a partnership with Spotify where he did a playlist of how he actually curated one of his collection, and that element also touches all the passion points that you have as a person to craft whatever that you need to craft. And for me, I think it's just the right partnerships would actually get the message across, and people will not actually feel as if you are telling them a lie. You know, sometimes mistakes will be made, and it's acceptable to actually allow them and learn from them. But for me, I think it's just the right partnerships and saying what you need to say, because at the end of the day, we will not cater to everyone. We will cater to specific markets that are relatable to us, and brands just need to get those right partnerships, and everything will just be cool.
I hear you. And what many don't know about you is that this is like a side project or a side gig for you. You are actually fully employed, have a 9 to 5, and you run strategies, and you do the thinking side when it comes to brands as well. But I guess what I want to ask you is around monetizing content, you know, because we have a lot of young viewers who look at what you are doing and they really want to be a part of it. So can you talk to the income part of what you are doing? I mean, I'm not asking you to reveal your earnings or anything, but is it something sustainable? Is it something, if I wanted to pursue and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I really want to start something, you know, to let people, you know, into what my purpose is, but I wonder if it's not going to waste my time, or I wonder if it's not going to be these hobbies that, you know, end up nowhere. What are some of the things that maybe you've gone through that you want to caution people about, and those that are good and not so good?
I think for me, how I view and how I would like to answer your question is in terms of looking at in a space of everything that we do is relative to that individual, you know, and success is relative to a specific individual. What I view as success is not what the other person might view as success, you know, and that's okay. That people are different. For me, in touching on monetization when it comes to social media and content creation. For me, because I'm fortunate to have a 9 to 5, I'm going to give advice from a biased perspective, because I'm going to be like, I'm at a safer space as compared to someone who actually does it full time, you know. So my advice would be based on me to say, for me, I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend where I was like, it's really strange how influencing works, because how it works is that, let's say for an example, I partner up with a specific brand, and that brand caters for, they have passion points around their stakeholder. They have passion points, and their passion points at this time where they want to launch a campaign touches on fashion. Then then with that partnership, they give me a budget to say this is how much we budget for this campaign, and they give me a period to say you are not allowed to work with a competitor for a specific period. And sometimes it gets difficult for influencers to charge, because if I'm charging you, I think of it as a term that you are actually locking me down for me not to be able to get access to work with a competitor. Then if a competitor comes to me and says, hey, listen, we want to work with you, but it's not in a space that covers the fashion, it covers something else that when you did our partnership with a different brand, it didn't cover. Then the competitor will say, oh, but you've worked with this brand, we cannot touch you anymore. So the monetization, I think when influencers start putting together their rate cards and going forward to brands to say, this is how much I charge, they do sometimes get brands saying, no, this is too expensive because it's just one post. But I look at it in terms of how much time you're going to be actually utilizing that content, and how much time will I not be able to get opportunities with other brands. Because the thing is, influencers become brand whores. But what if I'm telling a different story with competitors, but it's still the same brand? But I think it goes to that. So the monetization part for me, because I have a 9 to 5, it's more of an additional income that I'm getting from somewhere else. And it got to a point whereby I also had to sit down and realize that yes, you can get the money coming in, but you shouldn't lose the purpose of what you want to tell to people. So if people want to know if there is money, there is money, and there is room for people to actually enter the pie. Because I think if I have worked with a competitor and there's someone else who's doing something similar to me, then that competitor can actually go to that person and use them. So there is room for people to grow, and there is room for people to actually make money. But like any other career or any other space that people occupy, there will be dry seasons. It's not going to always be roses. Sometimes you will have to lie on a bed full of thorns, and you just have to take that and remember that whatever that you're doing is purposeful for you, because I think purpose drives us to continue doing what we want to do.
I hear you. So the cost of the opportunity you take should go into your pricing as well, if you are looking at this sort of work and trying to be original. Have you had to say no to any brand in order to keep being you or authentic?
Yes, I have said no to some brands because I felt they didn't relate to the content or whatever message that I'm trying to put out there. I have said yes to other brands where it didn't make sense, and it was learnings for me to actually look at it and be like, I should have done it this way. I think it goes with learning and understanding what space you want to play in. And your audience will tell you. When you listen to your audience, I think you will not get lost, because your audience will tell you to say, this is not where we actually want you to play. We want you to play in this space. Because as much as I put out this content, I did put it out for myself for fun. But when it started getting traction, I needed to get the feedback from people as to what is important for them for me to continue speaking about. Because at the end of the day, I was doing it for me. But now, since there's people involved who are quite crucial in me driving this message,
invested, because they look for us
exactly.
Post.
So yeah.
Okay. So it's not for you. It's not even about money. Like, let's say somebody came with a few more zeros than you're used to, and they're saying how maybe get us a Barbie look out there, Nkabi style.
Yeah.
Is that something you'd be open to?
Really, I would be open to it, because I think it goes to saying, how do I see this product being relatable to my environment? Because I think in most cases there has been an obsession with how Zulu men are, and an obsession with taxi drivers in terms of how far they would go with their spending. We categorize them and just put them in a box to say, I don't think this guy will actually walk into the store and buy this perfume. But it's a thing of saying, if you look at how these guys dress, they brag amongst each other, and their bragging comes in terms of exclusivity. It's like being a ghetto cheek. If you're a ghetto cheek, people like you because, yes, you might stay in the hood, but you still have that side of you that resembles like a person who actually stays in the suburb. You are knowledgeable about fashions, you're knowledgeable about expensive brands. And I think with them also, it's a simple way that I explain to people is to say, Kotane, Zamazul. If people don't know Kotane, I think it's literally the same thing, but how they're doing it's different, because the subculture involves certain passion points that it makes what it is, because there's music in terms of specific music that they listen to, Maskandi. So when brands come and say, this is what we want to do, I think there's always a way to tell a story and keep it original. There's always a way to tell a story and keep it original. Funny that you mentioned that if a brand would come and want to do a Barbie look with me, when the Barbie trend was happening, I did pull up a look that featured a touch of pink.
Touch of pink.
You know, and that was pretty much it.
That's as far as you can
go. As you can go to say there is a touch of pink, and there is with the narration behind, there is being vocal to say, hey, I was influenced by Barbie, and just being relevant at that moment. So I think there are new ways you can play around with, and sometimes you might be wrong, and being wrong, you will know from how your audience engages, because your audience will not lie to you, and your audience, it's numbers will not lie to you, and when the numbers don't correlate, like when they don't match, now that's when you start questioning to say, okay, fine, what did I do wrong where I can go back and fix that.
You're taking it this quite seriously, né? Something you are very invested in, because I can see as you talk about it, and you want the engagement to not be affected, and it feels like the brand you're building is very, very important to you.
It is very important, and I'm not saying people who are in the content creation space need to look at the engagement, because what I can tell you is we just need to put out purposeful content. People will catch on it, and they might not catch on it on the time you want them to catch on it, but they will definitely catch on it, because I do get people engaging with posts I've went live with a year ago. So there is someone looking for that content. There is someone sitting there saying, I would want to actually search for a taxi driver who's cool. And it's how AI is right now, even though it's still a baby and people are still questioning how AI works, but it's the prompts that you give it to say, I'm looking for a specific image, and if it has the knowledge that it has collected when it started, it's able to actually give you that image. People were doing trends of checking themselves out how they would look when they're young, and then when the AI came back, the only odd thing were just the fingers, right? Because it's still collecting that information that it needs. So I think I'm not saying engagement is important, but you just need to listen to your people when they speak to you to say, hey, you are actually diverting to what you were speaking about, and that's where I think sometimes as content creators we have the difficulties of actually giving what people want, because yes, it was my doing at the beginning, but it gets to a point where it's for the people, and it's always fun to actually now and then remind them of why they actually want to be part of your story. So I do take it seriously, because I do also come from a space of creative. So for me, it's as much as it was fun, it gets to become work. So yes, I do enjoy it, and I do want it to actually grow and be something that people can look at and come in and have influence in it, because as much as I do it, there might be something I'm doing wrong. And what I do appreciate by people who actually assisted me in rolling out the content was that sometimes you might think you're doing something right, but you're doing it wrong, and it's nice for people to come and say, hey, this is what this means. So if you have a platform and you have people listening to you, how about you actually keep the heritage that we have as an ethnicity or as a group, and people will still listen to you, and that way we know that we are safe. We're not going to have someone come in and actually tell our story in a different way. Especially for you, because you speak Zulu, and I think that's the other thing that adds to the allure of your posts. When they've just got that thing, and when you've got that thing, it's hard to put a word to it, but they really are entertaining, much as they are nostalgic at sometimes, because all of us have interacted or related with all those Kotanis that you are mentioning. But now it makes me think, right? Because you were saying you were doing it, and there's a fun element, but now it's gotten to a place where it's driven by the purpose that you have and intention, because eventually that's what you want it to represent. And what is the bigger brand and the bigger purpose for you with this? Because yes, you are still attached to your work, but what are you hoping that it does for your followers, your account? What I want my account to do for my followers, that's really tricky, because I just want it to be a space of knowledge about a specific era. I want it to be a space of reference about what they've been exposed to, but it has been not available in a sense that when you go online and search it, it's easy for you to find. I want it to be that space because more than anything, there's no new idea. I don't believe there's a new idea in the world. I believe that we are all inspired by someone else, and how we actually package our ideas after being influenced by other people. We take from them and just put how we would want it to be seen out there in the public. So for me, it's mainly that. It's mainly shifting the narrative of association that has to do with violence. When you actually see a guy wearing Brandwood and Omega or A.K.A. or whatever sneaker or whatever shoe that we would want to wear, I want it to be removed from that, because I think there has been that notion around Amabinga and taxi drivers to say they're disrespectful, they are violent, and I want to just shift the narrative to say, but that's not how I've been exposed to them, because I think we live in a space where rumors spread quickly than facts, and for me, I think if good news about a specific subculture that a lot of people have looked down on, and I'm able to actually portray it in a different way that I've been exposed to it, and how I would want the media to actually portray it is not being portrayed, and I have that opportunity to actually get a specific group of people to be interested in that, and I just want it to be that. I just want it to be a page of joy. I just want it to be a page of when you go there, you're actually gonna walk out laughing and say, okay, cool, I just want it to be that, and that's as far as it goes. That's as far. And when it comes to educational, it's I do want it to be an educational platform, but in terms of how would brands want to partner up with me and help me help them also to package what they want to sell in a way that people will understand, because I think sometimes language plays a very vital role for people to actually relate to you, because all I'm doing is getting dressed. There are thousands of people in South Africa who are getting dressed, but there's a limitation of them getting dressed and using their language. And what has shocked me with the content was that I had kids, young as 2 years old, who were doing Astorg, and I was shocked because I was like, there's probably other people who would want to connect with them, but in terms of connecting with them, the only barrier that's stopping them is language. And I think if I'm able to actually speak my language and get people to be engaging and get people to actually want to speak about what I'm doing, then it's evident to show that language plays a very vital role and is quite instrumental in getting people to be involved, because as much as there's kids involved in terms of loving the content and they relate to it and they find it fun, there's also other people from different races who definitely don't understand what I'm saying, but they find it fascinating because they're like, okay, cool, here's someone who's really honest to himself and authentic, and he's not trying to actually sound the way I sound right now, but
yeah, people are going to be shocked
the way I sound right now, and yeah, so I think for me, that's what I would want my content to do. I want it to be a space of learning, a space of finding joy, a space of research, and a space of people going there and saying, there's advice I would want to give you because what you're doing, it's fine. And I think if you plug this and this, it will turn into that. Who knows? I might wake up tomorrow and I do music, but how I do it's different. I think that's what I appreciate about the audience, because you give them what you give them, and they have advice in terms of how they would want you to grow. And I want it to be a space of growth. I don't want it to be a space of you are compelled to be doing this, and when it's not performing well, now it's you are a has-been. I just want it to be a space of being authentic and being who you are, because more than anything, we need to learn to use social media for what it is and not use it for what it's not. And part of it is monetizing, and if you are able to monetize and using that aspect of social media for what it is, I think that's fine. And if your platform is around that in terms of monetizing, if you're monetizing, let it be authentic and let it be beneficial to the people who are actually being exposed to it.
Bring joy. I think I'm stuck there because that's what it does for me. You've got a responsibility as well. I hear you bring in the language aspect of it and the young kids that are looking at you and and you've got also the people who like, what is this, and then over time they get to learn about an aspect. Because I mean, geographically in South Africa, I know, I mean, there's a lot of migration, but there are areas that you predominantly don't even see a person that's of a Zulu's descent, or so it's now, if you like in Northern Cape for example, now they're like, oh, okay, and then they're able to connect it. But those images have also been fed to us through television for many years. But I guess what I am appreciating is that it's in the now, in 2023, but you're still making it more relevant, and I think you've got my respect for that, because again, young people look and they want to see people that look like them. And in terms of a continent like ours, I mean, you are doing something that's predominantly South African or Southern African. If you take our neighbors, there are a few Nguni tribes, but on a let's Pan-African perspective, you are giving us the answer to owning our stories as well. You're giving us an example of somebody that, I mean, it's cool to be just who I am. There doesn't need to be anything accentuating me, and not to make fun of anyone, but that's where I think real confidence and real conviction and a place of wanting success and good things for yourselves comes from, because you understand exactly who you are and what happened before, so that you can be where you are. But do you have somebody that you look up to still, in your success? Like, we do speak about success, because I think sitting here, there could have been many other people, but I think what you do stands out so much that a lot of people are like, yo, I wonder, if I could even get there. But you're somebody that you look up to, whether they are in content creation or not. Well, actually, I'm going to ask you for maybe somebody that's in content creation, that you feel like their content stands out, and somebody in general who you feel like has played a pivotal role in, making sure that your brand is what it is today.
I think there's a couple of people I can mention that I really look up to in terms of how they've been able to drive a message in spaces that they occupy, and it changes now and again, because as people, I think information changes your perception about someone, and maybe I would look up to that person for a specific contribution that they've had in my life to a certain period. Then when I grew up and been exposed to different information, I tend to back that and be like, actually, I was not informed well, and it's okay to say I don't think I look up to you right now. But to name a few, I do look up to Bonang in terms of how she's been able to build a brand, and build a brand from being authentic, and even when she vanished, and not vanished in terms of not being anywhere, but she decided to go to New York. When she came back, she was still relevant. I was reading a post today about the stats for the recent Miss SA that she was hosting, in terms of how the ratings were actually up. It's someone who has not been in the public eye for quite some time in the South African market, but she's still relevant, because I think how she has built her brand, it's built from understanding who I am as a person, and knowing the significant role I play in inspiring a certain group of people, and inspiring those people to actually understand that you are able to actually achieve this, and you are able to actually I don't want to say take a break, but move away, or try to be, not try, but you are able to actually go into a different space, and also conquer there, and come back to home, and actually still be instrumental in that space. And I look up to her, because of doing that is not quite easy, and I'm just gonna drop a couple, and people are gonna be shocked. I look up to Beyonce, it's like exactly.
Beyonce, got a double factor,
double B. So
I'm here
so
for
it's
it.
like, yeah. So I think those are people that I look at, and when it comes to the content creation space. Because for me, content creation started a long time ago. There's a guy called who actually inspired me to move out of my comfort zone and just start doing content. There's a guy called, I think it's Woody McLean. He's an actor. He used to do. There was a segment that he used to do on YouTube called Stories with Kevin Hart. I bumped into that content where he would take Kevin Hart's joke and enact them in videos. That inspired me to start True Stories with Skunda. So that was there was a content piece that I started a long time ago, which was definitely just funny, just reenacting what Kumba is saying on his jokes, and now that's where my exposure, not my exposure, but my inspiration from content creation came from, because I was like, I've never seen this before. And for me, content creation, in terms of people I look up to, there's guys like Skits by Uspe, who's from Durban, that does those skits. I think it's rich content in terms of telling authentic stories. There's a guy Umtandeni who also does the skits. They used to do one with his nephew, and they used to call him Malu Umtandeni. So he does those skits, and I think for me it's just those original stories that I want to package in a short format that I can enjoy on the go, and I can look back and be like, oh, that was actually quite funny, or that was actually quite interesting. There's a lot of people that I do appreciate in the content space, and Ulwazi Madonze, who does a podcast, Kona Tutor MBBS. There's Umesh, Mesh Up, who does a podcast in the business space. I think it's picking up from all these spaces that build you as a person and that makes sense to you. And for me, those are people that I look at, because I think for the longest time, when I was asked the question about who I look up to as a content creator, I've always wanted to box it around, people who are in the fashion space. Where else, when I look at content creation, I look at it as a place of gaining all the information that you need in a way that you would appreciate as a person. And the people that I've mentioned, it's people that I relate to their content, I engage with their content now and again. And those are people I look up to. And someone might ask me this question tomorrow, and I might name drop a different group. And not to say now I've moved on, but I might be dropping that group because during that week I was listening to those people. I was exposed to those people.
No, I hear you, and you because in the people that motivate you, it's a wide variety. So it gives us a small window into the little parts that make up who you are. I mean, I never would have thought Inka would not be so, but I legit see it because Funubonwa and be best represented in the best light. The confidence. So I do see it. But there's as people that see you, we see and see your content. There's the side where we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. And what do you wish people understood a lot more about content creation, that if they don't do it, if they're not doing it, they don't have insight to it? Because I mean, I'm on TikTok to just look, right? But I see a lot of entitlement and demands in the comments, like do this, do it with this, do it. And some content creators, they are quite gracious about it. Maybe they'll respond to the comment and go and originate something that's like that. But like the pressure and the entitlement, what's a window behind the scenes that we don't know, that you wish a lot of people were more conscious of, as on the follower front? Like
it gets difficult. I'm not going to lie, it gets difficult, and it gets to a point whereby you as a person need to disconnect from what is actually not making this content creation purposeful for you anymore. Because I've had to take the heat sometimes on Twitter, where we know in South Africa, and anything can turn into a joke. They can like your content now, then you post the next day and they say, I think we should be honest. I think there's that thing that trends, and people say, you know what, we should be honest. And for me, when those moments started happening, I just remembered one thing. Whenever I logged online and I wanted to do a campaign that was associated with Maskandi, because I remember there was a time I wanted to do a campaign that was associated, that would actually shine a light on the Maskandi music. And at the time, I stand to be corrected, I think it was back in 2018, Maskandi crossed so much revenue as compared to other genres. It did even top hip-hop, and at the time hip-hop was trending. And for me, it always goes back to stats when you're actually putting out a campaign to say, no matter how you try to look at it, numbers don't lie. This is not fiction. This is based on researched information that we have found from doing all those research that we had done as a company, or whoever was collecting all that data and pull up the stats. And I wanted to do that, but because of how it was catered for a specific market, it was difficult to speak to someone in the boardroom and say, hey, listen, if we partner up with a Maskandi artist, or if we take this thing and do maybe a Maskandi song for your ad, it will blow up. And when I went online and I wanted to have references of people who are proof points to say, hey guys, this thing done this way could work, I couldn't find that. And I remember that to say, actually, there are people who would come and say, yeah, it's let's be honest, and that's fine. That's for them, you know. And it gets difficult in that manner in terms of now as a person, because I'm fortunate enough to be exposed into the media space and advertising world. I'm able to deal with the bad feedback I get from people to say, sometimes you don't need to respond. Sometimes people want to start a fire when there's no fire, you know. Sometimes you don't need to respond. And my purpose was to say, I need to be a point of reference when someone wants to speak about a specific group, because sometimes there are conversations you want to hold, but because you don't have any point of reference, it gets difficult to actually tell people what you want to say. And it goes back to language to say, I can say it in Zulu, but if I have to say it in English, it gets difficult. And now that's where conversation starts getting lost and people actually don't understand what you mean. So it gets to that point where people want to shame you and make you feel as if what you're doing is not purposeful. And I think for me, my initial reason was to say, I wanted a specific cool taxi driver. I wanted someone people can look at and relate to and not associate them with carrying a gun. Funny enough that you mentioned that people would want you to do certain things. There were people in my comments who would say, okay, when are we seeing your gun? which has always been
really?
Yeah, because like it has always been that, you know. It's always portrayed like that, to say, even if when you go on TikTok, you will bump into I'm not being or then they would some would show guns, you know, some would not show guns, and I appreciate the ones who would not show guns, because I think we are in the same space of trying to speak about it in a sense of fashion. We just want to show off. We just want to show off in a sense of saying, hey, what's stopping us to actually have a fashion designer who's going to do a whole collection inspired by a specific tribe? Like Dumangagolo did it with Amakwasa, because when he was doing his final year, his thesis question is how does he would take the Amakwala look and actually make it modern. And that piece that he made from his thesis was later on became a brand which is very luxury in South Africa right now, and not just South Africa but across the world, you know. And if we are able to actually get one person who's able to do that, there's literally no one stopping us to actually get one fashion designer who's going to actually tell real stories. Tiwamagog is doing it with his collection of actually going back to his upbringing and actually going back to what he's exposed to with the blouses that the grandmother used to wear, and all the fashion that was exposed at the time when he was growing up, you know. And I think for us, it's that to say there are people who are not going to like your content, and that's fine. That's the difficulties that influencers and content creators need to deal with. And sometimes it's the finances, because when you look at the finances, I think in terms of brands would want you to be here and there, and they overlook the expenditure that comes with you getting there. If I can make an example, if you're invited to a luxury event, you would have to put up a dress as a lady, because now you are scared of thinking of that people saw this dress at that other event. I need to go and rent a different dress. I need to put on makeup. I need to put on transport to get there. And what brands don't realize is that it's a cost for you to actually get in that space. And now there's also finances that actually play a role. And that's why you find sometimes people would actually fall into the space of saying, I'm depressed, I'm doing all these things, because there's so much pressure that comes with what people would classify you to be, you know. And I think for me, it's those difficulties that sometimes content creators don't mention, to say the people who make you sometimes are the ones who are going to break you, because we live in South Africa. We can love you today, and tomorrow we can wake up and say, let's be honest, you know. And I mean, it's those things, but I think I'm fortunate enough to deal with those emotions and have a good support structure when it comes to the people I work with. They're very supportive. The people my friends are very supportive, and I think sometimes it's always good to actually have a support structure that is actually going to push you in understanding why you started. And when you know, it takes time. It took time for me to understand why I started. When you know why you started, and you always go back to that question of saying, for me, it's I want people, when they speak about a cool taxi driver or a cool banger who is not associated with any violence, they are able to pull me up and put me on their presentation and say, this is the person I think will be able to help us convey this message.
That's very inspiring to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think our tracers out there have taken one or two nuggets from this conversation. If you could just, in closing, you know, speak to them maybe about how to, you know, all of these things that happen when you see on social media content creation. There's, it sometimes becomes difficult to find your own identity. I mean, you've done that so beautifully. If you can just tell them one thing about why it's important to be authentic in closing, so that they have that message told them to say, Ngibodile Bafana, and this is going to give them a definite new view into who you are and a different appreciation, because you've got them in mind. When you want to cheer them up in the morning, you've got them in mind about, you can just have a classic style, and just speak to them about how to keep their identity and not be swayed or influenced by, because there's a lot of noise on social media. That's where they live. Young people are always here, and it's got that side where it can actually toy with their mental health as well.
True.
So this is your message to them, your followers, and just our Trace viewers out and wide in the continent that really want to make it, but they struggle with self identity and confidence, and just that side of them that's just gonna push them through to another level.
To answer that, I don't think there's a one-way answer to that, because for me, I see it as putting yourself out there would break certain walls you have as a person. There are walls that I still do have at this day that I'm trying to break, but to jump onto the other side, it would require me to actually expose myself to that other side, to be confident enough to stand proud and be and still not feel out of place. So I think as a person when you are comfortable, and there's certain things in life, unfortunately, one cannot teach, but you just have to be taught through experience as an individual. I think it's cool to be different. I think one thing that people need to understand is that it's cool to be different, and in you being different and finding how different you are, just be a unicorn, like just be that, because how you are shocked as in terms of finding out that I do listen to Beyonce, it's because I find it fun. I find it cool at that moment. I find the message empowering, right? Women do run the world, to be quite honest. It's unfortunate on how the world is structured, but I was raised by a woman, and I feel like if a world they have warm hearts, they're welcoming, they are caregivers, and who doesn't want to be led by someone who caregives and has grace in whatever decision that they decide to make, So I think for me it's really around that, to say experience will teach you what someone else's advice will not teach you, because how you might experience me today, someone else might say I have an attitude, and I think it's just you finding yourself as an individual in terms of, this is who I am, and if I'm different, I'm cool. I'm gonna be different in this manner, and I'm not gonna try and be like someone else. I might be inspired by someone else, but I'm not gonna try to be them, because that room is already taken, unfortunately. And for me, what I also found, because there were people who came and sent me DMs when people started gravitating on the content. There's a guy from Pretoria who does A.K.A. When they shared that, I was quite delighted, because I'm like, okay, cool. Now it's how he was inspired by a struggle to say A.K.A. and he's consistent in terms of dropping the content, and how he's doing it is quite different from how I'm doing it. He goes out there, he's active, he's engaging, and for me, those are just proof points to say you will find yourself in the midst of the storm, and in you finding yourself, it's fine to understand that you are different. But more than anything, I think exposure and experience will be the best teacher for anyone, because how we consume things is different, and there's certain things that no one can be taught. They just have to go through them, and based on how they've been raised in their upbringing and their environment, they will make a decision based on that. And I think that's as far as it goes. I don't want to say people should do that. I'm not qualified to be able to drop stuff.
No, it's good. It's good. I mean, you are not prescribing, but you are really stamping the message that it is only when they go out, and there'll be a period of trial and error,
Yeah.
but they'll have to go out and
They have
experience
to.
it themselves in order to find their footing and find whether it's for them or not.
And I do hope that in terms of them going out, they do have a good support structure, because I think without a good support structure for myself, also I will not be able to actually be persistent in pushing what I was pushing. I do hope in whatever that people want to achieve in those spaces that they want to play in, they do have a good support structure, because it's very vital for someone to tell you that what you're doing is important. I think if there was no feedback in what I was doing, I was never going to continue, because I would be demotivated in terms of saying, okay, cool, people really don't care, and I really want them to see what I'm seeing, and they really don't care. Having a good support structure is quite instrumental in whatever that a person is doing, because I think it pushes us to realize our ultimate abilities to achieve whatever that we want to achieve, and people should always have grace around whatever that I am doing at the time, or whatever that you are doing at the time, because I think that pushes you to understand that it may not be about finances or money, but it's really about having to get that one person who would actually convert, or who would actually believe in what you're doing. A pastor praying for 1,000 people, and one person being a Christian and actually giving themselves to God. It's a win, It doesn't matter if the 999 one, damn, that's okay, quite there. 999 here did actually tend to give himself to God, but that one person is just going to come and cheer you up. Is quite for me. I think it's quite instrumental. Then I think the world will be a better place if like everyone has to be like that, because I think opportunities come, and when they come, some of us are ready because of the people, our surroundings. Some of us are not ready, and when we are not ready, it's not because we're not prepared, but I think it's because of how far we were exposed. And having a good support structure would put you in a better space, because having more than one person to actually be your eyes ball, and feeding back to say, actually, if you do it this way, it would be better. It's better, because I think we always want to believe in our ideas, but as soon as we let other people come into our ideas and have constructive feedback, because I do believe in constructive feedback, it opens up our eye to say, oh, there's more to this than I've seen, because I was getting dressed and people came in and said, no, there's something beyond getting dressed. Why don't you shine a light on the Sandy songs? And I've been doing that. And funny enough, the content that I have on TikTok around me singing in the car, I don't do anything. I just sit in the car and like I always do, like when I'm driving, because I have to. Then I listen to Maskandi. Then that content is performing, because people are like, oh snap! I didn't actually think Maskandi has these nice instruments. I didn't think Maskandi has this nice messaging. Could you please put together a Maskandi playlist for me? And that started in me realizing that people who also follow me for different reasons. There's people who've expressed to say, I don't follow you because of how you dress. I hate how you dress, but I follow you because of the Maskandi music that you always have in your background. Because I'm like, this is a cool song, and I'm okay with that. To understanding that what I put out and what it services people to be, it's what I did not even imagine. So as long as people have grace and they have constructive feedback, I think it's good to have a support structure, but experience and is the best teacher.
Thanks, Will.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I couldn't agree more on that last point about a support structure. And maybe through your content, you're also being one supportive to others that don't have those around them that are caring, and in the same way that you do. I have thoroughly enjoyed our chat, and I'm so sad that our time has ended, Bafana, but keep on doing what you're doing, and we are looking, beaming with pride, and gives us like a nice sense and a chuckle at the beginning of our day, and sets us on to, that has a ripple effect.
Yeah.
So never tire, and we are really proud of how far you've come, and we'll continue to look on. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. And before I go, as I always do on my videos, I would like to leave you guys with a short prayer. Ngiyanithanda abantwana basekhaya, akuthi uNkulunkulu angibusise uzizwa indlela engihambayo, angikhanyisele indlela enzeni engabi ayizona.
Using Gavi, there you have it. Download your copy of the Trace Academia app on any app store and find yourself learning content creation skills who knows? In the near future, it might be you that I'm interviewing in studio. That's all we have time for.
Thank you so much.
Okay.